Okay, Daniel, we're in the atrium of the Adam Joseph Lewis Center at Oberlin College. And to my right, to your left, is the south side of the building. Immediately behind you is the east side of the building. So the building is a passive solar design. The sound you hear behind you is a water sculpture, 600 gallons of water that flow over a waterfall when the sun is shining, powered by a photovoltaic array outside here in the building on the lower left side that tracks the sun. The atrium is designed as the core of the building. This is the area where we have public events, dinners, and that kind of thing. We've had funerals, weddings, and a variety of kinds of things. The students, when working on the design of the building, wanted a space that functioned a bit like a town square. The Lewis Center is a green building. It's effectively the first platinum-rated building, although not actually platinum-rated, done on a U.S. college campus. Three features about the building really do stand out in a major way. One is the origins of the design. The building came through a process of 13 public design charrettes or public planning meetings in which we simply opened the doors, said if you want to be part of the planning process, come on in. And so we had about 250 students and faculty and townspeople and anybody who was interested in building design come into the process. That occurred about 1995, the fall of 1995 into the spring of 1996. So the way the building began was as an educational venture. The second thing that makes it unique, I think, is that the standard that emerged in those public design meetings was that we would try in this building to cause no ugliness, human or ecological, somewhere else or at some later time. And if that's a design standard, that gets you thinking upstream from the building, to wells, mines, forests, farms, and manufacturing places where materials start that are crystallized into the built environment. And then it gets you thinking too downstream, everything that happens because of the building. So climate change and species loss and toxification of the world, those things become important as well. So the building has those two features built into it, and then there's a third thing that's important about the building. It was designed to be not just a place where education happened, but a place that, by the way it was designed, built, operated, and evolved over time, became education. So the building is effectively, along with the landscape around it, is a laboratory in problems of sustainability. So issues of water purification. We purify the wastewater on site as drinking water in, drinking water out. The building is a passive solar design with active photovoltaic systems that provide about 130% of the power demands of the building. So this building exports power back onto the grid. Ohio is a net metering state, so we buy and sell from the local utility grid all the time, but we are also generating more electricity over the course of a full year than we would use in the building. The materials in the building are from certified sources. We read a lot of what are called material safety data sheets, excuse me, which are was our attempt to take out toxics as well as to purchase materials that were certified as non-hazardous, or in the case of wood materials from forests that were certified for long-term sustainable management. In terms of the precise features of the building, if I walk you around, on the right-hand side here, out on the south side, this is a plaza named for one of the people who worked with us on the design of the building, John Lyle. He's author of a wonderful book called Regenerative Design for Sustainable Development. John died in July of 1998, but the plaza behind me is named after John in commemoration of his work on this building. There is in the middle of this a gnomon or flagpole-looking object, the shadow of which falls on concrete markers that indicate the seasons of the year. So the solstices and the equinoxes are marked by where that shadow falls. So the spot behind me is time and seasons. To my right, out on the east side of the building, beyond the water sculpture, is a wetland that is a very small replica of the ecology of this place prior to European settlement. This is part of the great swamp that stretched from the west side of Cleveland all the way down the south shore of Lake Erie out to Toledo, Ohio, which is very close to Detroit, Michigan. So this was a swampy area. What we did in this area was to take the east side of the building and redevelop that as it had been prior to European settlement. So that's a wetland and a small pond that has plants that were native to this place before European settlement. On the back of the building, on the north side, to my right now to your left, this is a working landscape with orchards and gardens designed to be the kind of place that re-engage students in the production of food and landscape management in more than just a decorative kind of sense. Beyond that are the parking lot, and on this roof immediately above my head are two photovoltaic arrays that generate about 160 kW of electricity per year. That's enough to power this building to give us roughly a 30% surplus. The floor beneath me is heated as a radiant slab. There's hot water that comes through this slab. The heating system and the cooling system for the building are geothermal with 24 wells out beyond the north side of the building to get down about 280 feet. The wood above my head here are blue lamb beams. This is from certified forest, as is all the wood in the building. If you want to walk with me over this way, this is the living machine, ecological engineering, designed by John Todd, founder of this kind of thing. But the standard for the building is drinking water in, drinking water out. And what goes on in this area, David, do you want to walk in here? Standing in the middle of the living machine designed by John Todd. This is ecological engineering. This is a system designed in the late 1990s, so it's an older system. Technology is now better, but this processes all the waste from sinks and toilets in the building. And then we recycle that water back into flushing toilets and so forth. So this is a continuous cycle. The water quality coming through this system is good enough to that EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency here in the States, now allows us to mix this water in the landscape. But the water in this system and the water right out here in the pond don't otherwise mix. But we're permitted now to use this water out in the landscape if we need to. The physical apparatus here is 4 tanks that are 7 feet deep. You see about the top 4 feet here. The water is bubbling here. You can tell that is in order to keep solids in suspension. We're trying to maximize the contact between root surface and the water column. But this is actually human waste turned into plant tissue. We process a very small amount of waste in this building. Actually, we have no lab waste, so there's nothing particularly toxic here. And there has been some talk of tying into the sewage output from a building on the east side of this structure, in which case we would be the first academic department ever since Plato's Academy to seek out shit instead of simply to give it. And that would be a landmark of sorts. But this system has worked extremely well. We've not had a bit of problem. You'll notice it's located right beside the auditorium, so if there was an issue with smell or odor, we've not had that, and the system's operated now for 6 years. But imagine this on a larger scale, processing waste from whole city blocks or very large buildings. So drinking water in, drinking water out, that's a standard that's possible. Film this. Daniel, this is a 100-seat auditorium. Again, all the materials here are certified. This is a compressed wheat straw panel for acoustical buffering. You're standing on a carpet made by Interface Carpet in Atlanta, Georgia, Ray Anderson's company. Ray has pioneered the use of carpet as a product of service, so that it goes to a customer, doesn't go to landfill, it goes back to the manufacturer to be disassembled and reassembled into carpet. The fabric in the seats, this is a fabric made by a company called Design Tex. We've done an inspired company in New York. This is a compostable fabric. And otherwise, your outdoor is very comfortable, but it operates as a kind of showcase for green design and green materials. The roof decking here, or the ceiling decking, that's also certified wood. This comes from forest managed for long-term sustainability in northern Pennsylvania, which is about 100 miles distant from us. Way system designed by John Peterson. The theory behind this was it actually originated with a project we did in Arkansas in the 1980s, in which we monitored the performance of the building and the output of the solar system that heated the building and powered the electrical system. The building here has 150 data sensors that drop data into a data logger every few minutes or 5 minutes or so. So the building performance can be measured, and a number of other things can be done. Now, several things happen when you do this. One is you get quick feedback from the way the building works and the way people behave in the building. And that feedback is designed to improve building behavior. Secondly, you know exactly how the building works, so the building management will be much better, much more fine-tuned to actual conditions. And thirdly, it's a way to educate the public in how buildings and the built environment influence everything beyond. How is the building actually connected to climate, to weather, and to the electrical grid, and so forth. And so it's a way done properly, it's a way that people can begin to see how systems work and how those connections operate. Come on, let's go upstairs. Yep. We're on the second floor of the Lewis building. The water sculpture over my left shoulder design is kind of an add-on in this area to make the building a bit more interesting and provide white sound and so forth. The flooring here is also a product of service and interface, and this is called raised flooring. There's a 18-inch gap between the bottom of the floor panels and the bottom of the actual subfloor, which is where all the airflow systems operate, all the electrical and plumbing systems. So if you need to change anything in the building, you don't have to tear out anything. You take out a panel, take out 4 screws, and you're down into the subfloor. A bit about the cost of the structure. The building, the total building cost, total what would be called the project cost for the building, is about $7.2 million. It may have been less than that, but that's the number that we got from the college. The actual construction cost is about $4.8 million, but that includes also the power plant for the building, the photovoltaic array, the roof above me, and the one out here, the wastewater treatment system. And so that includes things that aren't typically a part of new buildings. So the apples to apples comparison for this particular structure is it comes in about the high end of average construction for buildings of this size built during the bid environment of 1998-99 and our college classroom office buildings. So if the question comes back, can you build high-performance buildings at or near, or even in some cases below the cost of conventional construction? The answer is yes, you can. We now have a large database, and the experience of this building is that not only does it save you long-term costs, not only does it reduce environmental impacts, but it also can be done cost competitively, and you make these great buildings that are day-lit, wonderful places in which to live and work. But the real payoff for this building, for me as a teacher, is that this building and the landscape around it have given us an incomparable laboratory for the study of the problems of sustainability, the kind of issues that my students in a rising generation will have to solve very quickly in the course of the 21st century. How do you purify water? How do you avoid changing the Earth's climate much to our disadvantage? How do you design with ecological systems in mind? How do you grow food on site? This building becomes then a laboratory, so it's more than simply a place in which we hold classes. This building has provided us with, I think, the best laboratory in the United States on a college campus for the study of sustainability, at a scale big enough to get to be significant, but small enough to get your mind around and to comprehend at a scale that we can understand. So this, as Wes Jackson once put it, this is Kitty Hawk. We're 10 feet off the ground. The experiment in sustainability continues, but the Adam Joseph Lewis Center is the conjunction of this whole field of ecological design, how we make the human presence on the planet in a way that is sustainable and fair and decent and just and hopefully beautiful, and the whole educational environment. This is a crossroads for lots of different kinds of things. This is a tracking photovoltaic array that powers the little pump on the water sculpture in the atrium. And so when the sun is shining or there's enough diffuse light, it will power the pump, but you can hear it go higher and lower as the rate of sunshine rises or falls. Behind me here is a pond that is connected to the wetland around the side of the building. So from the high spot on the north side of the building, water, just gravity feeds into the pond. We capture roof water runoff, store that in a 10,000 gallon storage tank, and that is used to top off the pond in dry time of the year. Right behind you is a pole, the shadow of which again falls on markers here. Maybe you want to get the markers. The gray concrete, this is the equinoxes of the year. So when the shadow comes down this line, that's the equinoxes. That's the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year coming up. And you can just barely make out the shadow of the pole here. The light is too faint right now. We'll just walk around here. This is and since we are a classy outfit, you may want to focus on that pink flamingo out here. That was somebody's idea of a joke. Native to this place before European settlement. So the idea here was to build a replica of what the place had been and what it really does want to be. This is a natural wetland area. And someday maybe we'll do that. But we've used this to teach the arts of ecological restoration. One wild turkey. Management of this area, we take out invasive species, but otherwise leave it pretty much to the way it evolves. So this is a replica of a wetland about 10,000 years ago. The plants that we used in here actually came from an old glacial bog located just outside town that was left after the glaciers receded about 10 or 12,000 years ago. It is. Behind me is part of the orchards for the building, the landscape, and then to your right are gardens that are all student maintained. But the goal here was to create a place that was a working landscape as part of the overall landscape design. And then the photovoltaic array, this is a 100 kW array. That's roughly enough to power, say, 20 or 25 typical homes. And then on the building to my right, you can see the back edge of the photovoltaic array across the top of the north side of the structure. Below me right here is a 10,000 gallon storage tank. We try to capture as much of the roof water runoff as we can, and that's used to top off the wetland, which is straight ahead that we just passed on the east side of the building. So we try to save water on site, slow the rate at which water runs off the site, but use the building as a laboratory in every way for ecological design, and that is part of the curriculum.